Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whatever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Rashawn Borja, the Burger Popper, and I'm back after a little bit of a layoff. Let's say like a week and a half, 2 week layoff. I forgot the last time I posted a podcast on the channel, just drudging through the off season and everything. But joining me is a special guest. I'm glad to have him on, honestly, because it took a Twitter shout out to find him, a guest of his magnitude. Um, to join the podcast. I have Dusty from the Warhawk Report to talk some ULM football, particularly a new home and home series that they scheduled in the future in 2027 and 2028. But before we begin, Dusty, thanks for coming on again. And how's everything going?
Good, man. Just ready for the popping of the pads. My sport is always basketball. Basketball did not end the way we wanted it to with the first round exit in the Sunbelt Conference tournament. So now, love some baseball, but without the live ping of the bat, it's just not the same. So we're ready for fall camp to break and then the season to kick off shortly thereafter.
All right, absolutely. And I mean, I'm in the same boat too in terms of first round conference exits, being an Army fan. The drought continues for Army's first tournament bid, but someday it will happen. Someday it'll happen. Before I pass away, hopefully. But we're not talking about Army football or ULM basketball. We're talking about ULM football, of course. And in the off season, of course, I tend to gravitate more to home and home series in the future in terms of off season content. And Sam Houston scheduled a couple of paycheck games for the future. One such series was in 2027 and 2028, as I mentioned before. Excuse me, where ULM will travel to Sam Houston in 2020, or sorry, Sam Houston will travel to ULM in 2027, and in 2028, ULM will return the favor. So, Dusty, your thoughts on this matchup? Of course, it's an old Southland Conference reunion for many moons ago. ULM was in that conference before they made the jump up, and of course, Sam Houston was in the conference before going to the WAC and now Conference USA. So, your thoughts in the series being scheduled?
It's always good to have regional, right? Because ULM, they're going to recruit heavily into Texas. Uh, Sam Houston's going to try to get into Louisiana and get the guys that they can, potentially try to beat out the ULMs, Louisiana Tech, Grambling, Northwestern State. You keep going down the line. So it's good. And it's a good economic game, right? You're not necessarily having to charter a flight to get to Huntsville. It's an easy bus trip. It's an easy trip for fans, easy travel for the team. There's a lot of wins to it. And then you add into it that Sam Houston has kind of started seeing a little bit of uptick. They had a rough season this past year, but a lot of the games they lost were really one possession games. So it gives them the opportunity to really have a good strength of schedule, playing in Conference USA, kind of a even G6, G5, 4, whatever number we're at to now in conference realignment, so that you're kind of playing your peers. It's a kind of a fair fight. You're not having to play the Alabamas. You're not playing the Floridas or anyone else. You're getting a true home and home game, and more importantly, you're getting that home game where your fans can enjoy, hopefully, that sixth or seventh game in Malone Stadium in Monroe.
Absolutely. And one thing I noticed looking at past and future non-conference schedules is the lack of FBS non-conference opponents that travel to Malone Stadium. This is honestly it's a huge, I guess, victory, huge significant, I guess, yeah, just huge victory for ULM to get an opponent like this. Of course, the Army series was a pandemic based series, but even that series benefited the fan base a lot. So it's really good to see ULM host an FBS non-conference home game.
Yeah, I mean, they've had their share of P5 teams that have come to Malone, most notably Baylor there in 2012, 2013. It was Wake Forest that came to town. Minnesota in their inaugural FBS 1A, whatever you want to call it, season there back in 96. So there have been some P5 teams that have made the trek. But yeah, you're right. It's hard to get somebody to want to come to Northeast Louisiana, and it's really hard as a whole to get that P5 to come to a G5, knowing that they're kind of putting their necks on the line if they happen to lose to that G5 school. Not only did, hey, we actually agreed to go play on the road, but we lost. So there's always that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I do remember those the Wake Forest game, especially the Baylor game too. I mean, those are huge events for the program. And I guess in this era of college football, we're going to see it a lot less. I think. I hope not, but that's my prediction with the growing distance between the Power Four now and the Group of Five.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic is because okay, you have this great super mega conference, whatever you want to call it, the SEC, the Elite 65, whatever. At the end of the day, do you really want to play a 12 game schedule that is Florida State, Clemson, LSU, Bama, A&M, Texas, Oklahoma? No. You kind of want that break of okay, let's let some of these other guys kind of get in the game, try to help them develop, see what depth we have because injuries are going to happen. So I think that those games will still be there, but I think that it'll be kind of a buyer's market. We don't have to necessarily pay you as much for you to come and play at our place because everyone else needs these games as well and wants a little bit of extra money as well. So maybe we're not looking at the $2 million games. We're looking at the right at $1 million type of game. And that's the direction I really see it going to where these G5 v G5 games, like you talked about against Sam Houston, are going to be really key to make sure that you are filling up that home portion of the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we will see in the coming years in college football as it goes to 12-team playoff and these conferences do get bigger and conferences fall on the wayside like the ACC, which is we're all waiting to see what happens. But going back to Sam Houston, the main point of our discussion is I wanted to ask someone in the ULM fan base, someone who covers ULM, about the idea that the Warhawks could play, excuse me, they could play at NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans, as part of Sam Houston's yearly NRG Stadium game. And for context, Sam Houston, anyone close to the program, anyone who knows FCS football knows the Battle of the Piney Woods yearly game that happened at NRG Stadium. Of course, Sam Houston goes to FBS, and the Battle of the Piney Woods is no more. So, as a replacement for that game, Sam Houston has hosted a non-conference game, or they hosted a non-conference game last year against Air Force at NRG Stadium. This year it'll be against Texas State, and it looks to be a yearly event that they're going to do. And looking at the 2028 schedule, when ULM will visit Sam Houston doesn't have any other non-conference home games. I think they visit Colorado State, and I think they visit a Power Five team as well, with one more spot to fill, likely being an FCS school. So I guess you may laugh at first at the thought of it, like not you, but I guess people may laugh at the thought of ULM playing in an NFL stadium against another group of five, but this actually has a pretty good chance of happening when you factor in everything. So I want your thoughts as a ULM fan, someone who covers the team, about ULM playing in an NFL stadium.
Eh, I'm not a fan of it. I'd much rather be on campus and have that game day atmosphere. I mean, being in Texas, I've been to several Texans games. They're okay, now that they're getting a little bit better than where they have been when I first came down. They're maybe not as fun because there was really no expectation the Texans were going to go out there, hopefully have 11 guys on the field, hopefully they all matched in uniform and go at it. I'd much rather be on campus. And then, truthfully, we're not talking about two elite programs that are going to be battling. So there's going to be crickets in the stands. Why not give it a smaller stadium, a smaller, more intimate venue where that smaller crowd is going to be more of a factor, make a little bit more noise in the game than having this 80,000 seat stadium with 8,000 people watching the game.
That's a good point for sure. I was at the Air Force game, the Air Force Sam Houston game, this past year, and the environment was good for a group of five neutral site game, but there were a lot of empty seats, even for a national brand like Air Force. I think the attendance was around 21,000 or 21 to 24,000. That was the attendance of that game. So I can imagine the attendance being less. But I wanted to ask too, as a ULM fan, uh, do you think a lot of ULM fans would make this trip, would see this trip as a significant opportunity for the program, a rare trip for the program, or something of the like?
I think it's more that it's just kind of a close draw because ULM has a lot of alumni in the Dallas area, a lot in the Houston area, and then along the I-10 corridor. So it kind of gives them an opportunity that maybe coming to Houston for that game, if that's where it's actually held, would be a closer venue for them to come check out the Warhawks as opposed to traveling all the way to Monroe that might be multiple hours away for them.
Yeah, that's a good point too about the alumni bases in those large metropolitan areas. Another question I wanted to ask regarding travel is, do you think ULM fans, I guess, do they travel well? One, and I guess, are they the types to travel to, I guess, college football? I guess whenever they have a paycheck game to the Power Five, are they the type to travel to those games and see those games at those venues as significant opportunities, fun trips and whatnot?
I mean, they're definitely fun trips, and it's good to, I guess, kind of see how the other half live, right? Going to Texas A&M last year, 2 years ago, it was cool to go out there and see that, see the cadets marching around, obviously seeing revelry out on the field. That's all cool and dandy. Obviously, anytime you play in Baton Rouge, everyone all of a sudden trades in the maroon and gold for purple and gold. So there's always that factor that if you can play the in-state schools, you're going to have a lot better of a turnout. I mean, obviously, also who doesn't want to go to New Orleans to take on Tulane? Probably loses a little bit of appeal if that's a August September game outside in ULM Stadium as opposed to being in the comfortable AC confines of the Superdome there. But yeah, I think they're willing to travel if it's kind of that unique experience in a place that maybe is kind of close to home and gives you an opportunity to do something maybe a little bit more. If this game maybe were played at AT&T Stadium, you could take the family. We go to Six Flags. The Cowboys play on Sunday. Maybe that's a little bit better of a experience to warrant traveling to as opposed to coming to Houston, where it's really going to be this game and maybe the Astros are still playing or something like that. And that's really the extent of your experience.
I think it's a good point about combining things and loading as many things onto one weekend as possible to make this travel optimal. Because I mean, bowl games exist for the sake of tourism. In essence, the NRG Stadium game for Sam Houston is a de facto bowl game for Sam Houston, as much as it is a continuation of a tradition. So that much I do agree. I do agree with that. But me, I have to say, I know right off the bat, you enjoy the game being on campus. I love neutral site games because I love bowl games, love the pageantry of bowl games. So I'd be all for ULM going to NRG Stadium, just given the bowl history of ULM, only the one bowl appearance in the 2012 Independence Bowl. And I mean, I just feel like it would be a fun trip for the fans and an easy trip for them to make, about I guess like 6.5 hours, if I'm not mistaken. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's about a 6 hour drive, Houston to Monroe. I'll get to make that trek here shortly myself. But yeah, it's all about the opportunity and definitely making sure also that your student athletes are getting that best opportunity, the best game day experience. If that's what it takes to kind of motivate these guys and realize, hey, I'm playing on this NFL field, maybe I am good enough that I could work a little bit harder, have a great pro day, and kind of get some looks at the league, so be it. Whatever it takes to really motivate these guys and get them to go to that next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a perspective that I didn't even think about the motivation to pursue pro prospects, especially we're in the spring now. We have the United Football League where I mean the Pats NFL it can be indirect and realistic at the same time. It can be not a straight line and realistic at the same time. So I really like that sentiment. I mean, it's a great point I didn't even think about. And I think it's a good point to really put a wrap on this discussion. Before we wrap up, let's see, do you have anything final to add and anything to promote?
Yeah, check it out on the X. Still weird saying that. Warhawk underscore report for my stuff to cover ULM. Also part of Funbelt podcast or Funbelt PC on the X as well, covering all of the Sunbelt Conference, what we consider to be the premier G5 league. We have a lot of fun talking with coaches, student athletes, fans, and everyone else across the league, just trying to promote the league and really cover all the sports and different angles of the uh, opportunities that we have in the Sun Belt Conference, the Fun Belt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Funbelt's emergence, of course, ULM being an original member, it's just crazy. I guess how the makeup of the conference has changed so much that I think there's only three original members, both Louisiana schools and Arkansas State. I don't know if I'm wrong on that.
No,
Um,
that's right.
yeah, but it's just crazy that usually in a case like that, like with Conference USA, like having no original members left, they're in a weaker position. Of course, we live in Conference USA country. That's not a dig at that conference, but I mean, just seeing the transformation of Sunbelt's been really one of the more underrated stories of the past 20 years of college football. So I really admire the undertaking and uh, really look forward to seeing more of your content in the future. But until then, everyone, thanks for joining us on a night, morning, evening, whenever you find a way to watch, listen to this. Stay tuned for more offseason content. We're slowly chugging around. 4 months until the pads start popping. 4 months until week 0. And until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul. And I'm the Burger Popper.